Welcome to our lesson on subtracting across zeros. How to subtract across zeros. It's important that you line up your numbers vertically with the places lined up at the ones place. And remember, with subtraction, it's important to keep the numbers in the order that they are already in. You cannot change it with subtraction. So to line them up vertically, I'll take my first number, 8,002, and I'll line it up vertically with the second number, 7,134. Okay, next, begin subtracting each column starting with the ones place. Subtracting across zeros requires you to regroup. All right, so let's line them up vertically again. And we know we're going to begin subtracting in our ones place. So, 2 minus 4. This requires me to regroup. So I'm going to come and try to regroup in the tens place, but I have a 0 in that place. So I have to keep going. I have a 0 in my hundreds place. So now I need to continue over to my thousands place. I'm going to borrow from my 8. That becomes a 7. And then my hundreds place is now going to, instead of a 0, that becomes a 10. Then I need to borrow one more. That 10 becomes a 9, and this 0 becomes a 10. Now I can borrow from my tens place. So 10 becomes a 9. This 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 4 equals 8. 9 minus 3 equals 6. 9 minus 1 equals 8. And 7 minus 7 equals 0. So 8,002 minus 7,134 equals 868. If you wanted to check your work with subtraction, remember you can simply add 7,134 with your answer, and that will give you the total that you started with. Okay, let's practice. 28,001 minus 24,932. Okay, I cannot do 1 minus 2, so I need to come over and borrow from my thousands place because I'm subtracting across zeros. So my 8 becomes a 7, and the 0 in my hundreds place becomes a 10. Now I'm going to borrow from my hundreds place. The 10 becomes a 9, and the 0 in my tens place becomes a 10. And now I can borrow from my tens place. The 10 becomes a 9, and this 1 becomes 11 because I've added 10 to it. 11 minus 2 equals 9. 9 minus 3 equals 6. 9 minus 9 equals 0. 7 minus 4 equals 3. And 2 minus 2 equals 0. So I'm left with 3,069. Okay, here's another problem. 82,004. I'm going to line them up vertically. 27,233. 4 minus 3 equals 1. But now I cannot do 0 minus 3. So I'm going to have to regroup. Come over to my hundreds place. I cannot borrow from the 0, so I need to go to my thousands place. My 2 becomes a 1. And I've regrouped over here, so this 0 becomes 10. Now I can borrow from it. My 10 becomes a 9, and this 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 3 equals 7. 9 minus 2 equals 7. 1 minus 7, that requires me to borrow. So I go to my 10,000s place. My 8 becomes a 7, and this 1 becomes 11. 11 minus 7 equals 4, and 7 minus 2 equals 5. You need to put your comma in the same place. 54,771 is my answer. Okay, now you try one. 76,200 minus 32,223. Okay, right away I'm going to need to borrow. So I go over to my tens place. That's also a 0, so I need to continue over to my hundreds place. My 2 becomes a 1, and I'm regrouping here, so this 0 becomes a 10. Now I can borrow from it. I'll borrow 1, it becomes a 9, and this becomes a 10. 10 minus 3 equals 7. 9 minus 2 equals 7. 1 minus 2, that requires me to borrow again, so I'll come over to my thousands place. My 6 becomes a 5. My 1 becomes an 11. 11 minus 2 equals 9. 5 minus 2 equals 3. 7 minus 3 equals 4. So my answer is 43,977. All right, let's try one more. 13,012. 11,000 minus 11,123. Okay, I can't do 2 minus 3, so this requires me to borrow. Come over to my tens place. That 1 becomes a 0, and this 2 becomes 12, since I've regrouped with the 10. 12 minus 3 equals 9. Now 0 minus 2, that requires me to borrow. So I'll come over to my hundreds place. I can't take anything from there, so I come over to my thousands place. The 3 becomes a 2, which makes this 0 now a 10. So now I can borrow from it. This 10 becomes a 9, and this 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 2 equals 8. 9 minus 1 equals 8. 2 minus 1 equals 1, and 1 minus 1 equals 0. So my answer is 1,889. This concludes our lesson on subtracting across zeros.